start with school culture. We can try to understand the persistent failure of many African American students by studying the link between school performance and students' cultural orientations. The first link is the idea that there are cultural incompatibilities. In other words, different groups of people come to the table with their own diverse values and beliefs. The second link is that white middle-class families and African American working class and poor families have different cultures. The third link is that schools have their own cultures and that the white middle-class one is the culture that has been hardwired into public education. The current school system is predominantly characterized by a white middle-class culture. The fourth link emphasizes the fact that there is often a disconnect between students who come from different cultural backgrounds in the traditional school setting. The result is that schools, families, and students face challenges with communication due to the differences between the two cultures. Data supports that Black and white people have cultures that contradict one another. This suggests that education systems fail to identify that students who are African American have different norms and conventions than whites. Therefore, the majority of Black children's primary value systems are not reflected in schools. The fifth link is the fact that in general, students are expected to adjust in order to fit the molds of the school, rather than adapt the school structures to the children. Therefore, students are forced to adhere to the majority culture in terms of behaviors and expectations, even when these norms are not made clear for students. A great deal of the achievement gap is attributed to the fact that there is a rift between a child's own culture and the majority culture that is most valued in schools. Traditional education emphasizes the importance of being an individual, being competitive, and having specific goals for the future that can be considered out of sync with African American culture. Non-supporting learning environments are also an issue. African American students are more likely to report that they feel unsafe in their schools and that their learning is disrupted by other students. Research also shows that the majority of African American students attend schools that have disciplinary issues, along with schools that are in need of repair and lack a positive school climate. Therefore, African Americans are disadvantaged, as research shows that they seem to attend schools that are simply not up to par with other schools. Additionally, African American students are subjected to disciplinary actions that are stricter than whites are. For example, there are a greater percentage of African American children who are either expelled or suspended from school compared to white students. When a Black student is identified as the student who misbehaved, it seems quite possible that the transgression is evaluated with reference not only to the individual child, but to the race, sex, and class groups to which the student belongs. For Black males, the outcome can be alarmingly discriminatory. Research shows that on average, African American students and low-income students attend schools that are not as conducive to learning. For instance, there could be problems occurring within the school walls, as well as near the school, that could negatively impact the ability for students to learn and reach their fullest potential. For example, Black children are over 5 times more likely than white children to encounter at least some bad conditions near school. Children from families in poverty, especially in urban areas, are considerably more likely to attend schools located in neighborhoods with problems. All of these factors that define unhealthy learning climates are negatively related to student achievement. Now let's talk about the importance of caring environments. Schools that are successful have environments in which students and faculty build strong relationships. Students, along with their families, depend on schools for their support. However, research shows that educators who teach students from disadvantaged families usually have less positive attitudes about their students and do not respond as well to their students' diverse needs. Research also shows that when schools develop a climate that is supportive and caring, this is linked with student achievement. Next, let's talk about structure and support. Financial resources are a large factor when considering the achievement gap. Evidence supports that schools that are located in high poverty areas receive fewer resources compared to schools that are located in lower poverty areas. Evidence also supports that schools that have a significant number of white students enrolled receive more resources that elicit student achievement. More funds must be provided to schools in lower income communities in order to make progress in regards to closing the achievement gap. These These inequalities found between districts are largely due to the fact that funding is tied to property taxes. Not only are there funding disparities between districts, but between states as well. Chubb and Lovelace reported in the 1995-1996 school year, New Jersey spent $9,090 per student, while Mississippi only spent $4,900 per student. Biddle explained, Americans impose a huge additional unfair burden on impoverished students when they force students to attend underfunded schools. Here is a list of resources that were used to create this presentation.